welcome to my channel if you're new here, welcome back if you're a returning viewer or subscriber. In today's video I'm going to be filming my wrap up for the month of July. Unfortunately in July I only got to 3 books, so I feel like this video is going to be quite short and sweet. I had a very busy month. My brother got married and there were lots of celebrations surrounding that, so I didn't have a lot of time to read. I was also extremely preoccupied by Wimbledon. That's my favourite sporting event of like everything ever, so that was what my mind was on. We don't want to talk about the final, but we do want to talk about the final of the Olympic men's tennis, because Djokovic, you know? People are going to be clicking off this video already because nobody likes him. Oh my gosh, speaking of, this is so random and so not the point, but I forgot this was even here. My brother, for my birthday, got me a signed, like, what is it called? Tube of tennis balls, and it's signed by Djokovic, dated 2022, which was the previous time he won Wimbledon, and it may well be the last time that he wins it ever, so that was just crazy. I had so many beautiful gifts. But anyways, yeah, my birthday was in July as well. That was another thing that was stopping me from reading, so I didn't spend a lot of time reading. As well as that, I was in a pretty big book slump, which I think I've seen like the back of, which is nice, but because of that, like I said, I only got to 3 books, so we probably won't be here for very long. But without further ado, let's get onto the video. So the first book that I read in the month of July was Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is my fourth Emily Henry book. I've been reading her books in publication order. Let me tell you my history with her before we get on into this book. So I read Beach Read and I gave that 2 stars. I'm not going to get into any of my thoughts and feelings, but you can check out various videos where I've mentioned what went wrong with that book. But yeah, Beach Read was 2 stars. You and Me on Vacation, or People with Me on Vacation, the American title, was a 4.5-star read. Stunning. Book Lovers was a 3. So I've had a really wide range of ratings from Miss Emily Henry, so I was kind of hesitant going into Happy Place, but I also had a bit of a feeling that I might get on better with this one than I might have done with Beach Read or Book Lovers, whatever it might have been. Happy Place follows 6 friends, but it's mostly following our 2 main characters, Harriet and Wyn. Harriet and Wyn were in this friendship group. They went away every single summer to do like a big trip with the 6 of them, and then gradually over time they fell in love. They became a couple. The house where they go on holiday belongs to one of the friends' fathers, and he's actually selling the property. So this summer that we entered the book at, like this group holiday, is the final year that will ever happen. It's a very important year that everyone's attending after having like mixed attendance over the past couple of years, and you kind of kick off from there. You get some chapters which we see in the past of Harriet and Wyn falling in love and their friends like becoming friends, basically, like the friendship forming. But the main thing is that in our present timeline, unbeknownst to the friends, Harriet and Wyn have broken up. But in order to kind of like have one last happy memory from this holiday home, from this holiday they go on with their friends, they decide to kind of fake date, or like just pretend that they're still together, keep up appearances in front of their friends and not ruin the time that their friends are having on this one last holiday. So as you can imagine, the premise is kind of heartbreaking to begin with. You enter the book at this place with Harriet and Wyn, really not good, and you see the suffering and the kind of circumstances of their breakup is really strange. Wyn told Harriet over one like 2-minute phone call that he was breaking up with her, and you kind of wonder like how could their beautiful long relationship end in this 2-minute phone call and him seemingly not caring when he's shown himself to be like a different person throughout their entire relationship. And gradually things kind of unfold, you see what happened, and that's about it. It's a very emotional book. It's emotional because it's their last summer there. It's emotional because these characters are obviously breaking up, they've broken up, and they're having to revisit so many memories with their friends that are just like sore points for them. I really liked the characters. I thought they were really well developed, really well fleshed out. I really liked the setting. I thought the setting was beautiful. The holiday home really came to life within my mind. This book has my favourite scene of 2 characters falling in love that I think I've ever read. I was like screaming, kicking my feet, you know, that was the vibe, like for real though. Like I hate that saying, but like for real, those are the emotions, and it happens in chapter 7. I actually even like marked it with hearts because it's so precious and so accurate also. Those like silly, like flirty, like exchanges, kind of bickering, but in like a really light-hearted way, just because you're like playing with each other a little bit. I just loved every single moment of that. I thought that was so well written, really magical, and like instantly kind of drew you to the characters. In the past I've had a problem with Emily Henry's books because she tends to kind of like overdo the banter, overdo the connection between the main characters in a way that's just like completely unrealistic, and having these like one-liners, but it's going on for like an entire conversation, just back and forth, and every single conversation will be like that, and I'm like, nobody can keep up with that. Happy Place had elements of that, but in a way more realistic sense, because you could really feel the connection between Wyn and Harriet. From those first few chapters I was thinking, wow, this is going to be a 5-star read. This will be my first Emily Henry book that I've truly like adored every single aspect of. And then we got to the latter half and I came to the conclusion that this is the thing. I would much rather a straight up romance book or a straight up lit fic book, which could have like a romance subplot, but the romance is not the main part of it, or there's tons of nuance to it, you know, like a really toxic relationship or something like that, and you're like delving into how that affects the characters' lives or something like that, or it's like just a little element where we're focusing on the mental health of the character or their journey in like living in a new country or whatever it may be. But Emily Henry doing this thing of like it being an exact combination, like obviously her books are seen as romance books, but they're like very heavily almost like women's fiction, borderline lit fic thing going on. I just don't like the combination of those two things because I feel like they just stand so much better alone. And one of the reasons for this is that I fundamentally disagree with some of what the characters hold important or they hold dear. Romance is literally everything for these people, and if that's not working out, then that's like the end of the world. Obviously in these stories, you know, you'd hope that the romance would work out because that's literally the point of the book. It becomes the center of everything. You know, human relationships and human connection is obviously of like vital importance, but there's like a bigger picture in my mind of what we're here on the earth to do. And so seeing these characters put one relationship at the center of everything and have that affect everything just doesn't work for me that well. And I feel like in a pure romance book, which is just silly and light and fluffy and fun, it's so much easier to make a romance like the center of everything because that book is not taking itself like incredibly seriously. It's just like there to document one aspect of someone's life, which is their romantic relationship. But this weird kind of bridging of the genres just doesn't seem to work for me. Unfortunately, this is only just because I thought it was gonna be a 5. I gave it a 4, so a 4 is obviously a brilliant rating and really, really high in terms of like my ranking of Emily Henry's books. This one would come in second under You and Me on Vacation. But when I was expecting a 5, it does fall like a little bit flat for me. I didn't love the ending either. I thought the ending just, you know, I can't speak without spoiling things, but like the way things came together I just didn't love. So it's got like this element of nostalgia to it, which is really interesting because it's there even if you've experienced nothing like what these characters are experiencing. A really beautiful way of seeing complex human relationships, and Emily Henry writes in such an incredible way. She's got an incredibly strong writing style. If you're a fan of hers, then I'm pretty certain you would like this. Although having said that, this book did get mixed reviews. I'm not sure what that was about, but I know that for some people this is like one of their favourite books ever, so I would definitely recommend checking this out if you haven't already and you're at all curious. The next book that I read in July was a novella, A Sudden Smile by Françoise Sagan. So this is actually a bind-up of 2 of her little novellas. Bonjour Tristesse is the first and A Sudden Smile starts halfway through. Both of these novellas are about 100 pages. In A Sudden Smile, Dominique, a young woman bored with her lover, begins an encounter with an older man that unfolds in unexpected and troubling ways. I love an affair. No, I don't. I hate an affair. For some reason, I find it so fascinating to read about affairs. So I was kind of instantly interested in this book. Plus, I just loved Bonjour Tristesse. That was a 4.5-star read. I truly had the best time with it. I did a vlog actually. I'll link it in the cards and down below. So I went into A Sudden Smile expecting this like really great thing. While that was there, it also just fell a little bit flat for me. One of the things that the back fails to mention is that yes, our main character, Dominique, is, you know, she's got a boyfriend, but the person that she actually has the affair with is her boyfriend's uncle. So there's that whole element, and you can imagine the absolute like horror and hurt from the boyfriend as, you know, when he discovers this. Uncle was just this like, I don't know how old he was, I can't remember if it was even mentioned. I pictured him as like about 40. Him being this like worldly wise man, then her being this very young girl. It just felt like him manipulating her and her falling in love with him saying from the beginning that I don't want any strings attached, this is just a fun little summer fling, and her being like, yeah sure, of course, yeah, that, I'm totally down for that, and then her catching feelings, you know. It was just this like age-old tale of a man, like a powerful older man manipulating this younger girl to get what he desires, as well as that being slightly uninteresting because we've seen it tons of times before. It's just not an enjoyable thing to read about. It's not an interesting thing to read about because you understand everything about it, or at least I do, just from like hearing, you know, someone sum this up in one line. It didn't really bring anything new to that kind of trope. And I know this was written in like the 50s or something, so there were less of those books around, but I still think that it was kind of unoriginal in its content. I really liked the ending. I really liked the journey that our main character went through. I thought it was really beautifully written, and there was some stunning one-liners in this. You see this first like 100 pages, there's so many tabs of Bonjour Tristesse, and then the last 100 I've got about 4 of them. So I think there were less kind of interesting nuances to the themes that were discussed, but it did have those singular, amazingly written lines. The setting was also truly beautiful, set in the south of France. We are in Paris to begin with, but the south of France, the characters go and stay. They do this little kind of like romantic getaway, and that's just beautiful. They stay in some beautiful hotel, they spend their time by the sea, and it's just stunning. I guess also tainted by the fact that what they're doing is wrong and, you know, all that stuff. But if you want something that's kind of like atmospheric for the south of France, I'd recommend both of these two pieces of writing. The one thing I didn't like about this book, which I feel like is a little bit of a French sentiment, is the question of like, is short-term pleasure worth it if you enjoyed the experience at the time and you also enriched your life taking part in this thing even if it was wrong? That kind of tone of voice doesn't exist in English writing or in Australian writing, which is the two places that like I've resided in, but I see it a bit more of a narrative in French literature, because our female main character seemed to think so. She seemed to think that what she had been through was worth her while because of how she came out to like reflect on it. The final line, I'll cut out some words so that I don't spoil anything, but it says, "I was a woman who loved a man. It was a simple enough story. There was no reason to make a big deal of it." Yes, that is true, but also you really upset the boy you were dating. You've messed up the relationship of the uncle because he was also a married man, and you've also put yourself through so much pain, you know? It was a bit of a mixed bag, that book, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. So I think I came out with a 3.5 star rating. I'm definitely glad to have given it a go. I would have always wondered what I would have thought about that. So I'm glad about that, but at the same time, I don't think that it's anything you need to read. If you're a Sagan fan, then maybe. If not, then I might just recommend Bonjour Tristesse. And then the final book that I read in the month of July was Mysterious by Annie Ernaux. By the way, I read a bunch of other books. I just didn't finish any. That was like the main thing. So you might see some of those in August's wrap up or maybe September's. This is my third Ernaux. I've read 3 books from her. I adored the first. The second, not as much, but I still thought it was an interesting piece of work. I'm glad to have read it. And then Exteriors, I was gonna say my least favourite, not my least favourite, like just, I don't know, this was like a very, very mixed bag. I think that's the main thing to say about it. Taking the form of random journal entries over the course of 7 years, Exteriors concentrates on the ephemeral encounters that take place just on the periphery of a person's lived environment. So basically, Annie Ernaux, over 7 years, wrote down random little things that she witnessed in her life. Nothing of it is personal, but it's what she saw in her exterior, you know? Obviously, you could argue that if someone's writing about anything, automatically putting some of themselves in what they choose to document. But anyway, there's a theme that's discussed a little bit in this. But I thought the best way to explain this to you would be to read 1 or 2 of the little excerpts. I bought a copy of Marie Claire at the station in Newtown. This month's horoscope. You will meet a wonderful man. Throughout the day I wondered whether each man I spoke to was the one they meant. By choosing to write in the first person, I am laying myself open to criticism, which would not have been the cause had I written, she wondered if each man she spoke to was the one they meant. The third person, he, she, is always somebody else, free to do whatever they choose. I refers to oneself, the reader, and it is inconceivable or unthinkable for me to read my own horoscope and behave like some mushy schoolgirl. I shames the reader. As I leave the lift in the underground car park, 3rd level down, I am greeted by the rumble of extractor fans. Nobody would hear a woman scream if she was being raped. That's quite a good example of the mixture between something she's witnessing and something that she's like personally seeing within what she's witnessing. At night from the station platform at Saint-Lazare, you can see the lit up windows of departing trains recede into the distance. Then the red dots on the rear of the last car. Other trains emerge from the depths. You wonder which platform they're heading for. Whether it will be the one where you're waiting, motionless, hemmed in by the crowd. Birds soar towards the crown of the glass cupola. It definitely was a mix, kind of like poetry actually. Me reading one paragraph and being like, wow, whatever she's onto here is great. And then reading another and just getting nothing from it. So I felt very kind of middling about this book. At the height of August, a little old woman, fresh and rosy-cheeked with white ankle socks and a straw hat, is standing motionless in the middle of the Trois Fontaines shopping centre. She looks lost. She is surrounded by shops selling sportswear, the jeweller La Barrerie, and Nicholas, the wine merchant. You know, just that I just didn't mark anything from because I didn't get anything from it. But it wasn't all bad, but it wasn't all good either. So that got a 2.5 star rating from me. 2.5 stars sounds horrible. I don't mean it in that way at all, because a 2.5 is exactly in the middle of the 5-star rating system. That's what it was. It was neither bad nor was it good. It sat here for me, which I think is okay. I'm glad to, have read another Ernaux, and I don't mind owning this book. It will complete my Ernaux collection in the future once I've got all of her work. But I'm sure I'll reread it at some point in my life, probably find something new in it, because I think it's one of those books that you pick up on different things at different times, just based on the way that you're seeing the world and the way you're reacting to what Ernaux is seeing. So there you have it. Those are the 3 books that I read in July. Obviously not ideal to read this view, but I know that some people read like 1 book a month, some people read 1 book a year. This is just not up to my usual standard. That's what I'm saying. I'm not criticising anybody for how few books they read. Bigger, better things in August, of course. I've already finished one book this month and we are only on the 7th, so I'm sure that I'll get to a few more and probably have some more thoughts for you, definitely, just because I will have read more. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Let me know that you did. Subscribe if you'd like to stick around and see me read more in the future, see me get to books that I didn't manage to get to in July. I obviously missed off a lot on my TBR. I got to 3 of the 5 books I put on there. 3 of the 6, don't remember. 2 of them I mentioned here. One was A Certain Smile and one was Exteriors. Happy Place was actually on my June TBR, I just didn't finish it in time. But the other one I started but I didn't finish, and that's the book that I've already finished so far this month. So you'll be seeing that at the end of August. Sending my love to you from here to wherever you may be in the world. And I'll see you very, very soon in a couple of days for another video. Bye bye.